So there's a lot of things that happen in this new chapter 110 redraw, and I'll eventually get to them, but the main thing that I want to talk about is what is being mentioned about Garo here, and in my opinion, I think it's pretty much like revealing what's going to happen at the end of this arc. And let me also mention there's like no spoilers in this video. I'm treating this bit of information just like I would if it was coming from any other series. Regardless of what I know or knew or what may or may not happen, I promise you that this is 100% my authentic opinion that does not involve spoilers. And also, as I always say, the manga's continuity is always changing and sometimes to a drastic extent. So whatever you think is going to happen in the future of the story, regardless of how guaranteed or significant that you might think it is. But anyway, we eventually see that Super S has like this special group of slaves. And that's because apparently she's been treating them to whippings for a very, very long time. And it's revealed that the more and more that she does this, the more you become a monster. And I guess we're seeing them at like the halfway point of becoming a monster, because Bang says half monsters they remind me of, and then it cuts off, but clearly he's talking about Garo. And also we know this because Garo is like the poster boy for being a half monster at this point in the story. But also, that being said, Bang hasn't really seen like the full extent of Garo yet at this point in the redraw of chapter 110. I'm pretty sure he's only seen Garo like in the very beginning stages of his monsterization, like when he just simply had his eye turn red. Back in chapter 84, I think that's the last time they've had an encounter. So this is of course also further setting up their inevitable reunion that we are currently seeing play out in the story, where Garo appears to be like maybe completely a monster at this point. It hasn't been revealed how far along he is, but just aesthetically, he looks no different than what would be considered like any other monster that we've seen in the series. But anyway, coming back to this group of half monster slaves, they wake up and then suddenly they like regress back into being normal people again. And Bang says the monsterization is going away. Does that mean the trigger was in their hearts after all? It's not conclusive proof, but there was hope after all. And then Fubuki says, Silverfang, I hope we find the hero hunter soon, before he becomes a monster both inside and out. So this is pretty much just, in my opinion, telling us what is going to happen at the end of this arc. And this also goes back into what I've been talking about with One's writing style changing throughout the years, especially recently. I forget what video I talked about this in. It was one I made within the last 3 weeks maybe. But he's been changing up his style to better explain the story to you. I don't want to say it's spoon feeding you information, because I have said that before. Maybe that's a little too aggressive, but I'll say it's definitely way less subtle than it used to be. And I kind of enjoyed the subtleties that One Punch Man had. It made it different than most, other battle mangas that, just followed the traditional, like, here's exposition, here's how this works, as to where it wasn't always necessarily the case like that in One Punch Man, and you maybe have to figure things out for yourself on just visual context. But I think that this is just one straight up telling you like, hey, you see what's going on with Garo right now, and maybe you're wondering like, oh, is he too far along in the monsterization? Is he a monster? Can he come back? Is Garo doomed to be a monster? Does that mean he's going to have to be executed, or is there a way that he can be saved? Can he unmonsterize? And the answer is pretty much yeah, because we've seen throughout the series him struggling with who he is and what he needs to become, like playing this balancing game of not completely losing his humanity, but also needing to become unhinged enough to fulfill his ultimate goal. And sometimes he's more in control of it than other times, and then there's some times where he just loses himself and the monsterness just completely takes over. We've seen that happen twice so far. So this is showing us that like, yeah, Garo can eventually just fight this off using the trigger that was in his heart after all, and he can just become a human again. No spoilers, I promise. But if this is just any other series laying this out the way that this was, I would say the same exact thing. And also, Garo is an incredible character. Like, he can't be killed off, or he can't just be regulated to being a monster. he needs to come back into the story and be like a stable character. Like, it would just be a waste to get rid of him, because in my opinion, he's one of the greatest battle manga characters ever. Personally, my favorite in the series. And also, this can show us a way for him to shift from anti-villain into anti-hero. So now I'm just going to talk about what happens in the rest of this chapter. So after re-encountering Fubuki, Super S reveals like this plan about her making my mask her slave, like this elaborate plan which in theory would work, but she needs like a lot of lucky timing on her side for her to pull it off successfully. But it could happen, especially in the One Punch Man world. And it's odd that one is showing us the complexity of this plan for it to be something that may not even come to fruition, which is confusing me as to like, why are we seeing this? Because, you know, he doesn't just show us things for no reason. He's showing us Super S's motivation because it's possible that this may happen or something like this might happen. And also, this makes me think that Super S is not going to die at all, because at the end of this chapter she has an ambiguous ending, and if you were curious if she's dead or alive, I'm pretty sure she's alive because of this elaborate motivation here. Now obviously this is the past, and us, you know, reading the current series have seen the future and know that this doesn't happen, or at least my mask hasn't become her slave. I don't know if the other side of the equation plays out or not, her getting a monster to look like a my mask. But that brings me back to season 3 and why I think Super S has come back and why we have this sequence. Super S is obviously a very intriguing, provocative character, as well as Fubuki, and fan service sells for sure. So I guess that's why this is being incorporated in here, because this is some fan service for season 3, but also, you know, volume 24, which both, you know, kind of need to be successful. And One Punch Man is already short on female characters anyway, so the more the merrier. But then Silverfang like instantly takes out all of her slaves in an awesome sequence, and Fubuki gets the upper hand on her and whips her with her own whips. So then they ask Super S where Garo is, and she lies to them, like acting like she's under their control, saying that he's behind that door. But she also says, I tied him up and gave him an extended session of my special full course menu, but it still had no effect on that stubborn boy. So she did know that he was chained up, and she does eventually know where his true location is. So I wonder if that's true. I wonder if she really did whip Garo, and her saying that it had no effect on him makes sense, right? I mean, he has like one of the strongest wills of anyone in the series. And I think that's further showing us like, oh, that strong will allow him to overcome the monsterization inevitably. But they go into the chamber and Super S tricks them by activating Rover's dog whistle and summoning him. I like this. I think this is great connective tissue to get us to that Rover sequence, because originally they kind of just randomly encountered him, but this makes it flow much nicer, and also, you know, further makes great use of Super S's resurrection here. But then they get into a scuffle with Rover and deflect some of his blast while trying to get Super S at the same time. And then we come to Fubuki using her Hellstorm, like effectively, you know, taking her out. And it goes back to what I said about her, you know, having that ambiguous ending, her just falling into the ravine. If we've learned anything from this arc so far, it's that if you see somebody fall into a ravine and then nothing else afterward, there's an extremely high percentage that means that they survive. And like I said earlier, her motivation was way too elaborate for her to just be thrown away and for nothing to come of it. So either Super S comes back in this arc, or like in the next redraws or something, or she comes back like after this arc is over maybe, and then her beef with My Mask continues like even that deep into the story. But that's pretty much the end of the chapter, because it brings us to Garo, who is chained up, and I guess that will take us to what was originally chapter 115. But obviously that numbering is going to be changed now. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Let me know what you think about this chapter in the comments. Do you think that this is Garo's fate? What do you think is going to happen with Super S? And if you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.